The Ford Maverick is a compact-sized pickup truck that offers exceptional fuel economy and ride comfort, all within a bargain basement price point. As a matter of fact, the Maverick is so hot right now that Ford had to cut pre-orders to maintain supplies. Let's check out why. Bigger is not always better, and such a case is the Ford Maverick. It's a compact-sized pickup truck, so the overall footprint is going to be a little bit smaller. So if you're kind of a renovator or a contractor that needs to travel within the city a lot, then the Ford Maverick is a really good choice, especially considering the fact that it can achieve up to 40 miles per gallon on both city and highway driving, which is really incredible in a pickup truck segment. But however, if you're operating in large acres of land and needs to haul huge amounts of cargoes in large construction sites, then I think you probably need to look for bigger alternatives. Speaking of which, the only other competitive out there is the Hyundai Santa Fe, which does have more luxury and tech features. But personally, I really like the Ford Maverick, not only because of its American brand status, but it does have a slightly larger truck bed, and I think the overall powertrain is generally more versatile. We'll go over more details in a bit, but for now, let's go over some of the specs, trims, and pricing. The base XLT trim costs as low as $22,470. It does lack a lot of creature comfort features like manual seats, basic 17-inch wheels, and lower grade cloth seats. Moving up to the XLT trim gets you 17-inch aluminum painted wheels, nicer navy pear and orange highlight interior, and a rear cubby storage located in the truck bed. Configured XLT trim comes priced in at $26,650, which is still not bad and is decently well equipped, and you can see the full specs in the video description below. Opting for the highest Lariat trim gets you more luxury and comfort features, including LED lighting, push-button start-stop, higher-end vinyl 8-way power adjustable seats, dual climate controls, interior ambient lighting, and an acoustic windshield for added soundproofing and vibration. Two engine configurations are available. The hybrid engine produces only 190 horsepower, while opting for the turbocharged engine is going to get you much more at 250. For model year 2023, both engine options are at the same price. Standard powertrain features a front-wheel drive for both engines, but opting for the 2.0-liter Ecoboost engine unlocks the all-wheel drive option for an extra $2,200. Fuel economy on the hybrid powertrain gets up to an amazing 37 miles per gallon on city and highway driving, while the more powerful turbocharged engine will get you only around 26. While the hybrid engine gets a whopping 25% better fuel economy, the towing capacity will unfortunately be a lot less at just 2,000 pounds, while the turbocharged engine gets up to 4,000 pounds. Both engine configurations have a cargo payload of 1,500 pounds. Alright, so I want to start off with talking a little bit about the footprint. What really surprised me was just how low the Ford Maverick sits to the ground. It's only got 8.3 inches of ground clearance on 17-inch wheels on our XLT trim tester model, which is actually not a lot because when I parked this car in my parking lot, there were actually other crossover SUVs that had even higher ground clearance. Now, fortunately, there are aftermarket parts that can give the Ford Maverick a little bit of extra lift, and for model year 2023, Ford will introduce the FX4 off-road package, which will increase the ground clearance from 8.3 to 8.6 inches, which is great. Now, on a personal note, I don't like to admit it, but I'm a relatively short guy standing at just 5 feet 6 inches, and the low ground clearance of the Ford Maverick is actually a blessing for me because that actually makes getting in and out of the truck and accessing the truck bed a whole lot easier. Having a lower ground clearance also means it's got a lower center of gravity, which also improves ride quality, which I actually noticed during my week's worth of test driving the Ford Maverick. Now, one of the disadvantages I would say about the Ford Maverick is it uses a unibody chassis design that actually shares the same platform as the Ford Bronco Sport. There are some advantages to that, but one of the disadvantages is that it's not going to have the same off-road ruggedness as a body-on-frame chassis like the Ford Ranger or the Ford F-150 truck. Alright, let's go over some of the features of the truck bed, in which Ford calls it the Flexbed, and it all starts off with the tailgate. So first of all, it falls right out, which I don't really like. I wish it was dampened to kind of improve the overall user experience and make it a little bit safer. However, it's really relatively light and easy to use, so as long as you're anticipated falling off, then it's totally fine. Another unique feature of this tailgate is that it can actually be opened midway by just unhooking this cable here and snapping it on the upper bolt here. The intention is that this levels out with the wheel wells here, so that if you have any 4x8 sheets, that's going to level it with this truck bed, which will make it more secure and it's easier to tie down. Speaking of which, this specific truck bed here can actually fit up to 18 sheets of 3¼ inch 4x8 plywood sheets, which is actually not bad. So on the side here, you've also got an available LED lighting that you can easily turn on and off here. So if it's really dark out, it makes it a little bit easier to access your cargo space, as well as an available 400 watt, 120 volt outlet here. So if you need to connect any lighting or power tools, and that is also an option here. On the right, you've also got some extra cargo capacity that, you know, is easily accessible by just turning this knob to unlock. It's not bad. You can fit maybe just a small power drill, not much in here. But what I really don't like about this is, you know, it's not secure. You know, anyone can just open and close it. There's no lock to it. So if you're just parked in the street, then, you know, someone can easily access this cargo space, which doesn't really make it very secure. So throughout the truck bed, there are also up to 6 tie-down tow hooks as well as an available sliding rail here to further tie down your cargo space. There are also some available integrated slots where you can use just standard 2x4s to act as dividers, which also really helps to organize your cargo space. If you're going camping or just hauling your general cargo, that you just need to organize your cargo space a little bit better. Overall, it's really easy to use, and it's also got an integrated trailer hitch that was purchased or available with this trim here. The front wheel drive hybrid powertrain that we have here can tow up to 2,000 pounds, but if you opt for the all-wheel drive model with a turbocharged 2.0 liter Ecoboost engine, that's going to up and boost your towing capacity up to 4,000 pounds with a towing hitch package available on that specific model. Overall, again, you know, really easy to use, and, you know, just really like the smaller 4.5 feet truck bed. To give you a size comparison, the Ford Ranger, which is a mid-size pickup truck, has a truck bed in between a 5 or a 6 feet truck bed, depending on whether it's got a Super Crew or Super Cab model. The Maverick, however, is only limited with a Super Crew model, which is not bad. I mean, it's got 4 full-size doors, which makes it a little bit more convenient, but the caveat to that is it's got a slightly smaller truck bed. But I think for a lot of use cases, especially if, you know, just driving in and around the city a lot, then I think this will be a really good and versatile choice for a lot of your needs. All right, let's move on to the powertrain. There are 2 engine configurations available: a 2.5 liter hybrid powertrain in front wheel drive, or a more powerful 2.0 liter Ecoboost 4-cylinder turbocharged engine in all-wheel drive. Now, one option doesn't completely supersede or eliminate the other. It really depends on whether you want to have better fuel economy or power output, towing capacity, and traction stability and control with the all-wheel drive. Now let's start off with the hybrid powertrain. Obviously, you're going to get much better fuel economy of up to an amazing 40 miles per gallon on both city and highway driving, which is absolutely incredible, man. I actually achieved something very similar to that on my week's worth test drive, which is really good. What's also exclusive to the hybrid powertrain setup is its rear suspension setup. It's got a unique force vectoring spring mechanism integrated with this torsional beam rear suspension to help improve handling and ride comfort as well. Now, the caveat to the hybrid powertrain is power output. It's only got 191 horsepower, and your cargo and towing capacity is going to be limited to just 1,500 and 2,000 pounds. Opting to the more powerful all-wheel drive setup is going to increase your power output to 250 horsepower, so you're definitely going to feel much more power and capability, and your towing capacity is going to be increased from 2,000 to 4,000 pounds if you include the towing package as well as part of your purchase. And of course, with the all-wheel drive setup, you're going to get much more traction stability and control, as well as available select terrain traction management system. Now, the Ford Maverick, after all, is a very affordable pickup truck, and there's definitely some cost cutting involved. Just looking at the engine bay, it looks really raw and something that's straight out of the car from the 2000s. Nothing really innovative or special. If you think about it, the hybrid powertrain has been around for a really long time. And particularly with the hybrid powertrain, it comes with a CVT transmission, whereas the all-wheel drive setup comes with an 8-speed automatic gearbox. But what's really unique about the Ford Maverick, I think, in my opinion, is the ride quality. It feels really good on the road, and it starts off really with a unique suspension setup. In the front, it's got McPherson independent strut front suspensions. Typically, you don't see this suspension setup in normal vehicles. You only see them in higher end vehicles. So the fact that it's actually integrated or included with the Ford Maverick is definitely a huge contributor as to why the handling and ride comfort of the Ford Maverick is so good. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the interior here. Again, there's nothing really extravagant in here. You know, the Maverick is in the affordable category, so there's nothing super luxurious here. However, the overall interior is actually constructed of pretty durable materials, very tough and, you know, very easy to clean, especially with this smooth gray surface here, which I really like. The overall color scheme is fairly brighter. It's actually not black. It's actually kind of a lighter gray material, as well as a lighter gray material here and a darker gray material here, as well as orange color scheme around the interior cabin. So the overall space actually looks very clean, bright, and modern, which I really like. The steering wheel is relatively simple. You got simple buttons on the steering wheel for basically your media controls and controlling the menus on the LCD display here up on the instrument cluster. So you got different menus, you know, you got your trips readings, you know, your fuel economy, your driver assist features. There's a few, I think there's lane assist features on this XLT trim here. Media controls, phone connectivity, all your basic standard stuff. Now the instrument cluster, again, is really simple, but you know, I'm more of a manual guy anyways. I'm not really a superficial guy. So on the left, you've got your basic hybrid power meter. It tells you basically the amount of power you're drawing or the regenerative braking with the hybrid powertrain setup that we have with the XLT trim. On the right, you've got your speedometer, as well as your engine coolant temperature and your fuel gauge, as well as your gear shift indicator. Basic stuff. Up here, you've got a basic compartment bin. Very common to a lot of pickup trucks. They have a small compartment bin up here on the dashboard. And again, I really like the overall choice of materials and the design. I think it's very clean and modern. I especially really like these slated design patterns here up on the passenger side of the center console. I also really like these orange accents, like I mentioned earlier. It kind of helps boost, you know, the overall visuals to kind of a more contemporary and modern design. Down here, you've got a really basic media controls. Actually, as a matter of fact, when I remember driving the Ford Transit, they actually had the same media control setup. So you can kind of tell a lot of the components on the interior are actually recycled from a lot of previous year models. So nothing super extravagant. You've got your basic heat vents here, as well as a dedicated climate controls. Really easy to use, which I really like. Don't need anything complicated or anything like that, right? You got a basic USB-C and a standard USB port for connecting your smartphone to your infotainment system. It is compatible with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so it's really nice that you can, you know, use your Google Maps services or anything on your smartphone that's directly mirrored onto the infotainment system, which is really nice. Standard 12-volt outlet, as well as a compartment bin that has dividers. What's really nice is, again, you know, you have this, you know, silicone panel that you can just pull out, and it's really easy to wash. You know, you just use some dishwashing soap to wash it off. It's really actually a really good idea, right? Because if you didn't have this, it'd be so difficult to, you know, clean all the different compartments throughout the center console, which can be really time consuming. So this is actually a really good idea. Actually, I don't know why a lot of other car manufacturers don't do the same. Down here, we got 2 cup holders, as well as 2 more compartment bins, and you have a rotary dial gear shifter style, which is also really nice. It helps clean the center console quite a bit. It reduces the amount of space required compared to a traditional shift lever. What I don't like about the shift lever is that Ford did not have a mechanical stop limiter when you shift it all the way to the left or to the right, which I feel like it's kind of cheesy. You know, I think they should have at least added a mechanical stop limiter. So for example, if I shift into drive, fire up the car, you know, I can keep turning the shift knob infinitely. I don't know, I just don't really like that design approach. I think it was kind of a shortcut on Ford's part, but that's just kind of a minor pet peeve that I have. Sorry, car kind of moved a little bit. Okay, down here you got an electronic park brake, as well as 3 buttons to control the select terrain mode. You got normal, road, Driving conditions, so you got tow and hauling, as well as slippery and wet conditions, eco mode, and sport mode. So these different drive modes basically change the characteristics of the braking, accelerator, throttle, as well as steering and shift points. The hybrid powertrain does have a CVT transmission, but nevertheless, it kind of changes the overall driving dynamics a little bit slightly based on the drive mode that you select. In the middle button, you can turn on and off traction control, as well as turn on and off automatic engine start-stop. So if you're stopping at a stoplight, the engine will actually shut off to kind of quiet down the cabin space and maybe save a little bit of fuel consumption. And in the center, you got this really small compartment in here, very basic stuff. Got a really basic moonroof up here. Again, really basic stuff, nothing super fancy, which I actually really like. And these cloth seats that come with the XLT trim are actually not bad. They feel fairly durable. It actually feels really nice, actually. I would say maybe it doesn't have a tremendous amount of support, but it still feels relatively comfort with a fair bit of padding as well, which I actually really like. And these seats are 6-way adjustable on our XLT trim here. I don't know how durable these cloth seats are. You know, I definitely wouldn't want to spill any coffee onto it, but you know, I think they do feel relatively durable. And if you upgrade to higher trims, for example, the Lariat trim, it'll come with available vinyl seats if you want that extra bit of higher luxury treatment or more durability. And you know, that's about it. Oh yeah, so the infotainment system, this is an 8-inch infotainment system. It's super basic. I mean, this is probably something from the really early generations of the Microsoft Sync or even Ford Sync software. Really basic. There's no navigation, no nothing. So if you want navigation, you need to hook up your smartphone to the USB port through Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which is really nice. You can use your Google Maps or all your Google services or phone services on this infotainment system. But without it, all you got is, you know, your basic audio. It's got AM, FM, and XM. If you have subscription to XM radio, that is. You got your phone connectivity as well as a few apps, which, you know, doesn't actually have a lot of features, as well as different settings that you can have here for your Bluetooth. Really basic stuff, you know, clock and, you know, your color schemes here. On this slot here, it's kind of unique, you know. The Ford Maverick specifically designed it so that you can kind of customize a little bit with some 3D printed parts. So there are some slots that you can 3D print that will snap into place. So I've seen some online where they have, you know, various different compartment bins that you can snap in if you want to have a little bit, you want to store some coins or minor belongings, or if you want to have like a phone holder, then you can also 3D print one and just snap it in place. So I don't know. It's kind of okay. I mean, it's definitely something I've never seen before. It's definitely something pretty new that Ford introduced. So it's still a relatively new concept, but you know, there are some 3D printed parts out there available to help, you know, customize your Ford Maverick a little bit. So that's about it on the front passenger side. Let's move on to the rear. All right, so moving on to the rear seats, it's actually not too bad actually. This is a compact pickup truck size, so the cabin space is going to be relatively a little bit smaller. The Maverick is only offered in the Super Crew cabin, so that means you have 2 full-size doors, which is really nice for getting in and out of, especially for the back seats that fits 3 passengers. So I am about 5'6". I'm not a super big or tall adult, but nevertheless, there is still a very decent amount of leg room. I mean, the front seats are actually relatively in a upright position. So I still have quite a bit of leg room. It's actually not too bad. I'm definitely not complaining. I have an okay amount of headroom. You know, it's a little bit tight. I can definitely feel it. But it's overall like pretty spacious. I'm not complaining, definitely. Again, the interior does feel relatively basic, but still feels really clean, very airy, very light, which I really like, especially with a brighter color scheme that Ford incorporated. And I really like these orange accents and these bolt patterns and these slated design patterns, which I really like about the interior. It kind of freshens up the interior in a kind of a more, not so much in a more luxury, but in a more modern fashion, which, you know, I actually really like. Again, you got your cloth seat materials here, and down here you've got another 120 volt, 400 watt, 120 volt outlet, as well as two USB charge ports in the back. Down here, you've also got a custom adapter where you can have, again, various 3D printed parts. I don't know what else you can put back here other than a cup holder, but you know, there's just some other available 3D printed parts that you can kind of slightly customize your Ford Maverick and snap it into place in various places that have these adapters here where you can snap in. Overall, it's not bad. You know, I really like the interior. In the center, you've also got, you know, an armrest if you don't have a middle passenger, as well as two available cup holders. And what's also really cool here is that you can actually lift up this whole rear seat section here. So you have a little bit of extra room here. So it's actually really cool. You know, you have a 12 volt battery as well as a little bit more compartment space here, or cargo capacity if you don't need any rear passengers. Or even if you did, you can just, you know, fold the seats back down to cover up your cargo, which, you know, is actually a pretty nice way to keep your cargo secure. Again, super easy to use. You know, just unlatch it by pulling up this lever and letting it drop, and it'll fall into place. Super basic stuff. Again, you can fold down these seats here. I don't know exactly why, but there is slightly more cabin space down here. I know that there is basically a wheel jack down here that's stored, but other than that, you know, I would say there's not a tremendous amount of room in the rear cabin or in the cabin space of the Maverick, but it's pretty functional overall, you know, especially if you're just going around within the city, just being just a general go around, get around pickup truck. And if you need to pick up some friends on the way or some clients, then, you know, the Ford Maverick is, you know, a really good choice, and it's definitely does feel pretty comfortable as well. All right, so when I first drove the Ford Maverick, I was actually pretty surprised as to how comfortable and quiet the overall driving experience is. Now, the XLT trim that we have here is the hybrid powertrain variant. So it's definitely going to be a little bit of a contributor to just how quiet it is, because it's kind of using the electric motor in combination with a 2.5 liter engine. There is only 190 horsepower. However, I wouldn't say that it's definitely not a limiting factor of the Ford Maverick for a few reasons. For one, you know, it does have an electric motor to give you a bit of torque assist, especially at low speed. So, I mean, the power is okay. I mean, the electric motor does help with a bit of torque assist, especially at low speeds, to help the Maverick pick up speed. But again, the biggest high points I would say about the Ford Maverick is the drive, you know, the ride quality. I think it's really, really smooth, really, really nice, especially with a hybrid train, for a few reasons. After doing a little bit of research, I did notice that the front suspensions actually use independent McPherson strut suspensions, which you'll typically only see in higher end performance cars. And in the back, specifically with a hybrid trim, yet they have a force vectoring spring suspension setup integrated with their torsional beam. So that's kind of another unique suspension setup that helps, you know, deliver really good ride quality as well as pretty good handling as well with the Ford Maverick, especially the fact that it sits, you know, relatively low to the ground, so you have a lower center of gravity. So it just overall, actually, as a matter of fact, it feels like a regular car almost. Really, really nice to drive, and that's definitely one of the highest points of the Ford Maverick, I would say. Now, as mentioned earlier, the Ford Maverick is a unibody design that's shared with the Ford Bronco Sport. So it's basically a crossover SUV platform, which kind of, you know, explains why it drives so well on the road. So the caveat or the downside to that is, you know, it's just not as rugged or bomb-proof as, say, a body-on-frame design like, you know, the Jeep Wrangler or even the Ford Ranger or other, you know, off-road duty pickup trucks. Now, despite just, you know, again, having 190 horsepower, I think it's got enough power. I mean, you do hear the engine moan a little bit if you push it a little bit hard, but, you know, just on regular city driving, it's definitely really quiet, very comfortable. And again, I was really surprised at just how smooth the overall drive is. I really enjoy it, and the visibility is actually really, really nice as well. I have a really good front visibility as well as sides. You know, I have a really good bird's eye view of the road for sure. Now, of course, one of the plus sides of the Ford Maverick, especially if you opt for the hybrid trim, is the fuel economy. I'm getting about, let's see here, I'm getting about 5.7 liters per 100 kilometers. So that's about what, like 41 miles per gallon. That's really, really good, especially for a pickup truck, right? And I'm sure a lot of pickup truck owners right now are kind of worried with just how high the gas prices are. So it's definitely not going to be fun, especially if you have something like a V8 or even a V6, right? So having a hybrid powertrain, especially for a pickup truck, is definitely a huge plus, especially in today's times. All right, so what's my overall take on the Ford Maverick? Let's start off with the powertrain. I really like how Ford gives buyers the flexibility of opting for more fuel economy with a hybrid powertrain setup or more power with an all-wheel drive configuration. Personally, I really like the hybrid powertrain setup that I have under test here. I think it drives really great and you get exceptional fuel economy, and it's just perfect for someone that doesn't need to haul huge amounts of cargo and needs to travel within the city a lot to meet different clients or access to different work sites as well. So the hybrid powertrain is definitely a really, really good option out there, especially in the pickup truck segment. And if you need more towing capability or more power output and traction stability and control, then you can always opt for the all-wheel drive setup for about $3,000 or $4,000 more. Next year's model will also have the FX4 off-road package, which will also increase the ground clearance that will give you a bit more off-roading capability as well. So overall, I'm going to rate the overall powertrain a 4 out of 5. Moving on to the interior, the Ford Maverick, after all, is a affordable pickup truck, so that's where some of the cost cutting is definitely introduced. I mean, I'm personally not a very, superficial guy. I'm definitely cool and okay with a lower grade interior. And what I really like about the interior is it does have very high quality durable plastic that's really easy to wipe and clean off, especially in a dirty environment when you're in different work sites that you have access to. So it's really not that bad. I would say that I wish it did have a better infotainment system, but fortunately it is compatible with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so you can always use your smartphone in lieu of that. I also really like how practical the interior is. There's also a lot of different compartments and cargo capacity, and I really like the extra storage space on the rear seats. So overall, I'm going to rate the overall interior a 4 out of 5, given its specific affordability and price point. All right, moving on to the ride quality and comfort. I think this is where the Ford Maverick shines the most. Super easy to drive, very smooth, very quiet, and just a really nice car to drive. It actually feels like you're just driving a normal crossover SUV. It also sits lower to the ground, so it gives a better lower center of gravity, which also improves the overall ride quality. And it's also got a really good suspension setup for specific city driving applications. So I'm going to rate the overall ride quality a 4.5 out of 5 for the Maverick. However, if you do take it off-road, the Ford Maverick's not going to really do so well, particularly with the lower ground clearance. And it's also got a unibody frame design that shares the same platform as the Ford Bronco. So it's not going to have the same off-road ruggedness as something with like a body-on-frame design such as the Ford Ranger or F-150. But for city and highway driving, especially just going around, getting around within the city, then the Ford Maverick is a really good choice. Nevertheless, that's my take on the 2022 Ford Maverick. If you like this video, please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And as always, keep driving, and until next time.